What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to some SPQR coverage with the release of the new or revised edition of the game right around the corner. Decided to bring you guys a little bit of coverage here. So the most recent Wargames Illustrated had a neat little section, or a couple sections really, on SPQR, and actually presented us with a new list too. So basically one that we had actually covered in an earlier video where we kind of looked at, sort of like missing factions or ideal factions that should be in a new version of the game. And one of those was sort of like anything from like any of the three servile wars, so kind of like a Slave Revolt list, kind of ideally centered around Spartacus and stuff like that. And lo and behold, that's what this list is actually about here. So it's a pretty cool thing that we get for free essentially as part of the magazine here. And so pretty interesting list too. So we're going to have a couple of videos on this for you guys. The first list here is just going to take a quick look through the army list itself, including the heroes. Excuse me, and then we'll take a look at the scenarios in separate videos as well. So we can already from this see some of the changes that will be coming here in the new edition of SPQR. So we'll kind of touch base on that as we cover different things here. But let's start off with a little bit of the description here. So the appearance and equipment. So escaped slaves had little in the way of formal organization, and anything as unifying as a uniform was unknown. They possessed only what they could steal or capture and were perpetually short of food and equipment. So basically, painting hobby-wise, this should be a ragtag look. So certainly shouldn't be too much uniformity across your various units. The warband itself then, so will usually be a large force, able to crush its enemies either by weight of numbers or the tenacity of its warriors. The sheer menacing sight of this army can intimidate and frighten the enemy to great effect. So it does have a really cool special rule here, called Tide of War. Slave Revolt warbands are generally comprised of less than skilled warriors, but they have recently gained their freedom and have fire in their bellies. Many will fear capture and re-enslavement more than death, and while this can make ex-slaves achieve truly heroic things, it also means their confidence can be easily shaken. So whenever an enemy unit is wiped out or fails a will to fight check, every unit in the Slave Revolt warband within 12 gains +1 bonus to its bravery for the rest of the battle, and that's actually pretty cool because some of them don't really start out with much in the way of bravery. However, if a unit from the Slave Revolt warband is wiped out, which is very likely, or fails a will to fight check, every other unit in the Slave Revolt warband within 12 will suffer a -1 penalty to the bravery score for the rest of the battle. So you're gonna have to pick and choose your fights very careful here, but it is kind of cool that you can essentially, as the more winning essentially you do, the more that their bravery will increase, and that they'll really start to outshine or sort of punch above their weight if things are going in your favor. But if the battle's starting to not go your way, it's going to be kind of a bit of a tidal wave in that direction then. So it's going to be increasingly tough for you to stick in the fight, and that's a really neat mechanic there. So something that we do like there. And it could be interesting, throughout the battle you might gain and lose some of these bravery points as sort of the ebb and flow of the game. So that's actually really neat. But it can also be something really fun for campaign games, which is one area where SPR really does shine. So, and as it says here, these bonuses and penalties are cumulative, and so a Slave Revolt commander must handle the momentum of his forces very carefully. With proper management, even a unit of house slaves can become fearless, all but unbreakable, but an early loss can cause the whole warband to tremble on the verge of routing. So yes, you do have to be very careful with, again, how you pick and choose your fights here, but fortunately you have a couple of decent things at your disposal, one of which is your hero. So getting into it here, so the Slave Revolt hero starting off at 45 drachma. Interesting that they use that instead of denarii for this, but that's really cool. So anyway, pretty typical hero stats here, but +1 range, +2 melee, 2 dice, +2 bravery to start out with, no armor because you can kit them out, and then 2 hits, which is what they're using for wounds apparently now. So, but we'll get into that. So just an infantry hero here, but again, we have plenty of options, so we can go basically the full sort of range of equipment here. You got small and large shields, mail shirts, helmet or leather, short spears, daggers, axes, great axes, swords, bow, horse, and then up to 3 javelins. So really, again, a true toolbox hero that you can take from this base form here and really get kit out for whatever you need to do. So whether it's, building a tank, building just a damage dealing sort of death machine here, more like a gladiator type hero, or just a mounted commander, just to be able to get around the battlefield faster, or even someone who's really good at ranged combat. There's all kinds of tricks here, so really good stuff there to start out with. Then you kind of get to your elite unit here, or elite individuals that kind of act like a unit. So gladiators also have really good stats. Notice they have 3 melee dice, which one of the things that's changing in this edition is that sort of most units will be throwing essentially 1 dice apiece, because that was one of the things, I guess, that was a little bit out of hand with the first edition of SPQR. There were just a ton of dice being thrown and a ton of rerolls, and that was kind of one thing that was kind of just bogging down gameplay. So for something to now have 3 melee dice is pretty damn exceptional as a standard unit, right? This isn't really even heroes in that sense. But anyway, these guys are infantry minions. Start off with short spears, but we have several options here. So again, we can go swords, axes or great axes, small shields potentially, or large shields, mail shirts, helmet, or leather options. So again, we can really kit these guys out to what we need to do, and they're pretty damn deadly. So and they do have actually 2 wounds apiece. So again, it's almost like a unit of heroes. So as it says here, they do have a special rule: gods of the arena. Gladiators could be superb fighters, but we're used to fighting individually rather than as a functional unit. A unit of gladiators may never number more than 10 models plus any heroes, but unit members do not need to be equipped with the same weapons, but they do have to have the same armor. So once you kind of settle on whether you want to go essentially no armor, light armor, or sort of medium/heavy armor with the mail shirts, from there then you can just really create a variety of weapons and go from there. But this is going to be like a really awesome unit, A, to field, because they're going to do a lot of good work for you, but B, is just going to look great on the tabletop, and hopefully Warlord blesses us with some good models for that, and hopefully it'll be nice if it's a Warlord resin kit, but honestly this would be well served to here have like a multi-part plastic kit, just so that you can really customize easily. So hopefully that's something Warlord does take into consideration if they decide to produce something like that. But anyway, moving on, then we get to basically the quantity of our list here, which will be the 2 slave units. House slaves, as you can see, are dirt cheap. That's essentially cannon fodder. They come equipped with a dagger, which again is going to be basically borderline useless unless you're just really using those models for soaking up damage, getting in the way, or you might need them for something in a given scenario or something like that. We can purchase some javelins for them, which again is going to add some cost there. You can get up to 2 per, and I guess it's a cheap, decent little ranged option. They don't have any range bonus though, so I mean, and these are 1-use only weapons, so doesn't really seem like the best thing for me. I wouldn't probably go that route. With them having basically need 6s to hit. So you're, if you're getting lucky and I guess throwing those 6s there, you might get a few things here and there, a few casualties. But honestly, I think the option here is really just to get move them from the dagger and get a sword. Just pay that extra 2 points, just so that they can have that ability and do what they need to do with that and have just a little bit of offensive punch. But again, really, for 5 points apiece, they're still going to be really dirt cheap. Now, that being said, in quantity, of course, right, for 3 points, you could go, I think the max is still going to be like 30 for minion units, if I'm not mistaken. So really, for 90 points, you have a unit of 30 of these guys with daggers, which would be pretty scary. And, that's going to take any enemy a while to chew through. So from there, again, they can just occupy space, get in the way, be annoying, and with that many bodies, and hopefully as many getting into combat range as possible, and they, even with just the 1 melee dice and no bonus, you hopefully would throw enough 6s or anything there. But again, getting a charge off with that could still be. They could do at least a little bit more than just be there, but nonetheless, a really neat option. But Also, as with the army special rule there, so if these guys can just be in the area of you winning a couple fights, they can at least get their bravery up, and from there, sticking maybe a decent hero or two in and around them, let the heroes do the work for you and let the slaves essentially absorb the damage, and then hopefully you'll still win some fights that way. So that could be an interesting option there, but again, we'll have to see how the new edition really plays. The trained slaves, though, are really where it's going to be at. Those are going to be your common units. So they do have a javelin and sword as standard, +1 range, +1 melee, and +1 bravery to start with, too. And all that for 7 points is actually a pretty good bargain. And then we do have a pretty extensive set of options here. So we can go the javelin route, again, if you do want a little bit of range. I don't think this is really overall going to be a list that's going to do much in the range department, unless there's some other tricks up their sleeves. But you do have access to small and large shields for a little bit there. On the defensive side, helmets or leather is as good as it's going to get on the armor side. Again, maybe worth the investments. Pretty cheap on those, 2 points. Interestingly, that these guys can be converted to cavalry, so that'll be an interesting sight to see too. But yeah, for 10 points a piece there, essentially. Although if you go that route, you do not get access to large shields, which makes sense, given the time and all that. And they also get access to a horn, which neither of the other two units had access to. So again, overall, I think trained slaves are going to be where everything's going to be at, and excuse me, complementing them with a hero or two, and depending on what you want to kit your hero out as, and of course that brings in talents and everything. We'll have to again see what changes in the new edition. This could really be sort of a sleeper unit that the enemy's probably going to underestimate, at least for a couple of games. But if you've already gotten yourself to a level where you know how to utilize this kind of unit, and you're just a good player anyway, you'll find the way to maximize use of these guys, and then winning just a couple combats here will start bumping that bravery score up, and really as soon as it reaches +2, that's already pretty respectable. So a couple more fights, and if you get it to +3 or something, these guys are going to be tough to break. So, and they're still overall cheap enough, if you don't go too crazy with upgrades, to where they should be competitive with a lot of other things out there. And again, backed up by your superlative hero options potentially, depending on what they're kitted out as. And I feel like pairing a couple of these trained slave units with something like a decently sized gladiator unit, the gladiator unit will again sort of get the kills. The trained slaves will contribute a little bit, but they'll essentially provide some of the bodies as well. So that in concert, I think, could be really neat, and we'll have to see what other, again, potential talents and other things are out there for these guys. But also just the ability to potentially convert these guys into cavalry, although we're getting a little bit pricey there. So certainly probably not for small games, but larger games certainly would be worth thinking about at least a cavalry unit or two, just because you're going to be encountering that in probably most forces that you encounter there as the opponent. So finally, for this part of the video, getting into the special characters, and then they do have a mercenary list here. So trained slaves, tribesmen, and warriors may be used as mercenaries by a Slave Revolt warband. So let's see, interesting there, tribesmen and warriors, although we don't really have any of that here, so I'm wondering if we'll see more of that in the full book. So right off the bat, we get Crixus, which is really cool. So 220 points, whopping chunk of points there. Again, comparing that to some of the other heroes that we've looked at in our series, covering all the different factions from the first edition of the game, that's right up there in points, but also just stats and abilities. Crixus is pretty badass. So 6-inch move still, range +1, melee 4 melee dice. That's scary right off the bat. Bravery of +4, only armor of +1, but 8 wounds. And so he's a level 6 hero. He has the following talents: Decapitate, Die Hard, Inspire, Heroic Rush, Mighty Blow, Shield Bash, and Shield Wall. And he has a large shield and leathers and sword. So again, his gladiator get up there. So going to be very scary. We'll have to again see how all those talents may have changed for the new revised edition, but that's still a pretty solid set of talents that he has there. So he's going to be pretty solid on defense. But he's going to be able to dish out the punishment as well. And as it says here, he's also got a special rule. So the undefeated, he is a master of 1-in-1 combat. So when he's engaged in a challenge, he may reroll any of his own melee checks and may force his opponent to reroll any number of theirs. So good luck beating him in 1-to-1 combat. He's basically going to get to reroll his 4 dice that he's attacking with every turn, and he's hitting on 2s. So 2s with rerolls, that's good any day of the week. And regardless of what you're at, anytime you have to reroll yours just to then be able to hit him, that's going to be pretty nasty there. And yeah, it might seem like he's only got that +1 armor on paper, but with some of his talents that he has here, again, we'll see how the shield wall works with the new edition. But you've already had to reroll your attacks to get into potentially damage him, and from there his lighter armor might not be the best, but he's got a decent amount of wounds to soak up, and really he's going to be putting out I think in most cases more damage than most other heroes are going to be able to handle. So yeah, you might put a few wounds on him here and there, but he should be winning those fights pretty easily. So unless he's going up against somebody like Leonidas maybe, or Artemisia or something like that, Crixus is just going to be a badass for you. Then we also have Ganecus, 225 points, so just a couple more than Crixus here. He's another beast. Melee +5, 5 dice, just ridiculous. Bravery only +3, but only +3, still pretty damn good, and 7 wounds. So he's also a level 6 hero. He's got Blade Master, Darting Blade, Dirty Fighting, Lethal Blade, Numbers Count for Nothing, Piercing Thrust, Wall of Iron. Again, go back and review those talents if it's been a while since you've checked the game. He's ridiculous as well. He's only got leathers, no shield or anything, but he's a dual wielder, so he's gonna also just wreck people in combat. And his special rule is Champion of Capua. So when fighting in a challenge, for every hit he removes from an opponent, every wound essentially, another melee dice may be rolled. If any of those are successful, remove a hit from the opponent, and yet another melee dice be rolled, and so on and so forth. So basically, as he starts wounding your hero, he's going to get to roll more dice, and if those go through as well, it's going to keep the chain going here essentially. So and with his 5 dice, chances are he should get at least one wound against a hero every turn. Now he's not getting the rerolls that Crixus has, but oh well. His melee dice are 5 dice, but on +5, so he's still rolling on 2s, guys. And if he's putting 1 wound through a turn, he's going to get to at least roll 1 extra dice. So really, you can almost put in parentheses there like 5+ melee dice a turn. So another scary guy. But finally, the man himself, another 5 points more expensive here. So Spartacus, he actually has range +2, which is pretty cool. Doesn't come with a bow, but hey, that's not really where he's going to be focused, but interesting that he nonetheless gets range +2. Melee +4 and 4 melee dice, so equal of Crixus there. His bravery is +5 though, so certainly the best of the bunch here. Starting with better armor as well, and also 8 wounds. He's an actual level 7 hero, so he's got Blessed at Birth, Demoralized, Divine Luck, Loyal Bodyguard, Motivation, Voice of Command, Wall of Iron, and War Cry. So really good stuff there. And then he actually comes with 2 special rules. So if we can get this to focus again. So he's got Ever the Surprise. After all forces have been deployed on the battlefield, a warband that includes Spartacus may move D3 of its units up to 6 in any direction before the first turn of the game. And that ignores difficult terrain. So really, depending on the scenario, could really, again, pun intended here, surprise the opponent and certainly give you some flexibility where you can kind of maybe bait or misdirect the opponent with your deployment, but then shift things around to where you need them. And then finally, he's got Great and Unfortunate Things. Any unit led by Spartacus will automatically pass all will to fight checks, which is pretty damn nice. However, whenever he loses a wound, he has to take a bravery check. If he succeeds, the hit is instead removed from the closest enemy or closest friendly hero within 6. So basically, he can pass off damage and keep his hits intact here, or his wounds intact, however you want to word it. So if you, depending again on the size of the game, and these guys are a big chunk of points, so probably fairly decently sized games. But if you can just put a couple of cheap heroes next to Spartacus to basically just absorb wounds for him, then he can kind of just keep going on and on and on. So really good stuff there. So overall, a fun list. And again, hopefully Warlord does bless us with some Gladiator and other type of models, like an actual release for this list, not just something that we really are just kind of left with here in the magazine, because not everybody's going to have picked up this Wargames Illustrated. And hopefully they maybe get this to us as a PDF release if it's not going to be in the new book. But overall, just a fun list. Can't wait to actually try this out. We do have a Republican Roman warband already, so we'll have to see if it really wouldn't be too much trouble to then also just kind of take a sideways tour from there and build up a Slave Revolt list here. So really good stuff. Happy to see a new list, and one of those that we had mentioned should be in the game that Warlord is giving us here. So let us know in the comments, guys, what your thoughts are on the new edition coming out for SPQR, your thoughts on this list. Happy to hear from you. What do you guys think about the three heroes here, Crixus, Ganecus, and Spartacus? And hey, if the game was large enough, you could run all three, which would be frightening for the opponent to try and deal with these guys in combat. But anyway, yeah, let us know in the comments. Smash that like and subscribe button if you could. And if you guys also want to support the channel a little bit more, check out the link in the description. If you guys head over to Warlord from there and pick up anything that helps support the channel. So really do appreciate that. Thanks so much for stopping in, guys. We'll see you in the next one.